Hey, what's going on, guys? Cloud of Truth here with some more Battlefield 3 gameplay, and today I've got a pretty nice video for you all of using a weapon that I've really not done much about on my channel. I've not covered. I haven't used this gun and I cannot remember. It's been a really long time since I've used this gun, and this was a weapon that I used back in my early days of playing Battlefield 3 on this account, back I think before I even hit like level 30, and I'm not talking Colonel 30, I'm talking low level like noob level 30. I used this gun and I loved it. It was a fantastic weapon. Had used the infrared scope, yes, back when it was, people considered it to be overpowered, back when it was just a beastly sight. I mean, you could see everything almost on the whole map. It was like having a freaking wall axe. It was that good. And I used the foregrip and then the extended bags, and it was a great setup. Absolutely loved using it. But you guys know that the infrared scope, first of all, did get nerfed, and it got nerfed horribly the first time, and then they kind of tried to patch it up, make it a little bit better, but it's still not that great of a scope. But the gun here itself did get nerfed, and that of course is the M249 saw in the support class. And this is a weapon that's it's for the most part relatively common. I see this gun quite a bit. Like I said, earlier in the game's lifetime, before this weapon got nerfed, I saw it a lot more just because it was a really, I wouldn't say easy gun to use, but it wasn't difficult to use this weapon. It fired very fast and the recoil wasn't too bad. So I saw this weapon quite a lot, and then it did get nerfed, and a lot of people just kind of abandoned it from there and started moving on to other weapons in the support class to use instead of the M249. Now the setup I've got right here, which is what I actually want to discuss with you guys today, is something that I was a little bit scared, honestly, to try it. I was just like, oh no, what am I getting myself into here? Because I'm using a setup which normally I would just completely say no, I would never recommend this setup. It was something that I would always just say, no, you should not do it. It's just bad for the gun. Don't use this. And that is the foregrip suppressor combo. Yes, gasp foregrip, and yes, gasp the suppressor. The two attachments that everyone thinks are just horrible. And actually, I did really well during these games. Now, this is some TDM on Sane Crossing that you're watching right here. I've also got some Operation Firestorm and Domavon Peak TDM as well. I went on some nice kill streaks, some 7, 8. I think I went on a 15 kill streak one time, although I guess technically it was like a 7 and 8 because I got killed and then revived during the middle of it. So I guess it counted on the scoreboard as like a 15 kill streak, even though I guess I did get killed in the middle of it. But the setup here is just something that's, like I said, some of you guys are probably just gasping about, oh no, why would you ever run this? Well, there's a setup that I've tried on a few other support class weapons. Like the PKP, I did horrible with this setup. I did not like it. The gun just did not handle very well for me. And I also tried it on my favorite LMG, the M240B, which really is the king of the support class. Absolutely freaking love that gun. I call it the Tiger. For those of you that wonder why, the Tiger is the king of the jungle, just like the M240B is the king of support class. Call it corny, whatever you want. That's just what I call the gun. I absolutely love it. Think it's hands down best LMG in the game. But this setup, I tried on those two, didn't like it. So you know what, I hated it. It just doesn't work for me. But using it on weapons like the M27 or L86 is actually not a bad option. Of those support class weapons that are kind of the hybrid assault rifle support class guns, those two in particular are going to be the best with the suppressor, I think. I think they fit that role pretty well. And the only other one which I would actually recommend, which is what I am using here, is the M249. Now, what exactly does the foregrip and suppressor do to this weapon that actually turns it into a little bit of a monster? Now, it's not just like just a complete beast and just tears everything up, destroys all guns. It's nothing like that, but it actually makes this gun really good. Now, the foregrip, as you guys know, is going to decrease your EDS accuracy. It's going to increase your spread. That's obvious. But for LMGs, it helps you control that recoil, which is pretty balanced on the M249, having a 0.4 vertical recoil and a 0.4 left and right pull, meaning the recoil values as far as where's the weapon, basically when you're shooting, kind of going to bounce. It's going to go back and forth pretty much evenly. It's not going to pull to one side like some weapons do. It's just going to kind of go back and forth relatively evenly. Now, the foregrip helps you control that a little bit, which for me personally, I actually like. I know some guys say, oh, you know, it's just statistically, it makes the weapon worse. I don't care if stats say that it makes it worse. If I do better with the gun, with the foregrip on it, then I'm going to use it. Just like I said in my last video, I do better with the foregrip on just because I don't have to worry about that weapon bouncing back and forth as bad because the foregrip helps me control that horizontal recoil. Now the suppressor, first thing it does obviously is it keeps you off that mini map, makes you basically invisible unless there's like an MAV or tugs nearby. That's the first thing that I really like about the suppressor. The second thing is it does reduce your vertical recoil just a little bit. I think it takes it from a 0.4 on the M249 to, I think it was a 0.36. Check that again. Yeah, 0.36 for your vertical recoil is what it takes it down to. So it's not like just heavy amounts that it reduces it down, but it helps out a little bit. But there's one thing about the suppressor which actually probably some of you guys didn't even know that it did, and that is the fact of using a suppressor on the M249 alone. This is without the foregrip, keep in mind, it makes your weapon more accurate. Yes, it decreases the spread while looking down sights. Now, it's not just blown away as far as how much more accurate the weapon gets, but it does make it slightly more accurate, which can kind of show in some of this gameplay in terms of the range. Now, there is some parts during this game I was using the bipod. I think on Domovan Peak, I tried the bipod out. I didn't like it. Using this setup is more of a run and gun aggressive type of player, not just like a PDW shotgun type of aggression, but kind of just a step behind that in terms of your movement speed is what I like to use this setup for. And having that bipod, I don't find cases where it really helped me out and made it more useful. And it just, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable running a bipod on a support class weapon unless I'm going to play really passive. I'm just going to move around the map really slow, I'll run a bipod. Otherwise, I gotta have the foregrip. I just feel more comfortable when having a foregrip. I don't care what it does to the gun, it's just, I like it. And first of all, I don't know, I think it looks better with a foregrip on there, so that's another reason why I like to run it. But yes, the suppressor actually makes your weapon more accurate. So, is the suppressor all fine and dandy? Is it just that great? Well, no. It has its negative sides too. And one of the first ones that you guys many of you do know about, is the fact that it just reduces your damage range. It really nerfs that range, which for some guys is just a deal breaker. For me personally, I don't find that to be the case, and I'll explain why in just a second. Starting off, though, the M249 is going to do that max of 25 damage, very similar to your assault rifles and carbines, and it's going to go out to 8 meters without the foregrip on. And the minimum damage is 18.4, which is all the way out at 50 meters. Once you put the suppressor on, though, that drop-off starts at 4 meters. 4 meters, yes, you heard me right, cuts that max damage range in half. And the minimum damage range is going to start at 35 meters instead of 50. So it really does cut your damage range down, making you, in a sense, play more aggressively with it, which is kind of just a play style I personally like to play. So this is another, I don't know, kind of hidden reason why I like to run this setup, just because it forces me to keep up and close to my enemies in order to get more kills, even though a number of these kills you're seeing in this gameplay is actually out at range. Now, another bad thing about the suppressor that it does to the M249, and that is it cuts your muzzle velocity really bad. Normally it's got a 620 for its muzzle velocity. It cuts it down to 330. Yikes, that is just ouch. I mean, that's really bad for that. But if you stay more aggressive, that you're not going to notice that nearly as much. Now, even though during this gameplay, like I mentioned, I'm kind of staying a little bit back in terms of how I'm running around, but I'm not just way kind of in the back, almost like sniper range. For the most part, I try to stay near medium range. And I think this weapon actually does pretty darn well in medium range when you have in between about 20 to about 40 meters. I think this weapon, me personally, it really does excel. And one of the things I really like about running the setup on a LMG like the M249 is the fact that you have 100 bullets. Most assault rifles and carbines, which you're going to go up against, have only got 30 or 20 if you're running like the SCAR or the G3. Having that 100 shots, oftentimes you'll just outshoot enemies just because they run out of bullets faster than you do. And of course, with suppression, I still don't understand the game mechanic why it's even in here, but just from that, this gun actually can benefit from it. Because of the fact of when you both are shooting at each other, for some reason your guns decide they're going to spread wildly, which doesn't make sense. But oftentimes they'll miss their shots because of that, and while they have to either reload or pull out their sidearm, you still got plenty of bullets left, and you can just keep raining shots down range until, in a sense, they're dead. And it really puts them in a bad situation and gives you an advantage, especially if it's a one-on-one gunfight, kind of at medium-ish range, and you just hold down that trigger. It's very difficult for another enemy to win that gunfight. So why really does this setup work so well on the M249? Why would I really recommend it? Well, first of all, the M249's fire rate of 800 rounds per minute is something that is just awesome about the weapon. It really makes it a contender in close quarters. And if you're someone that is a flanker, you like to play rush or even conquest, and you really like to move and get behind your enemies but stay stealthy, and you want a gun with a lot of bullets, this is one I would recommend. Having that 100 shots with a suppressor and that 800 RPM to keep up in close quarters really allows you to play that flanker aggressive role and actually do very well. So what is tips I would give you guys for shooting this gun? Because you don't want to just hold down the trigger. If you just press your fire button and hold down, your spread will increase. The longer you hold it down, the higher your spread goes. It's basically how it works. So in terms of firing this weapon with a suppressor on it, make sure you are bursting. That's the biggest thing I give you guys. And as far as when to burst, it really determines on your range. If you're in pretty close quarters, just hold it down. There's no reason why you should burst. If you start getting out to medium range, consider bursting anywhere. I usually try it around 4 to 8 shots, maybe sometimes in upwards to 10. That's really what I go for, just depending on how far away my target is and if I'm accurate enough to stay on him while shooting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Leave me your thoughts about this setup in the comment section below, and please try it out. I'm very curious to hear what you guys, for those of you that tried out, what you think of it, because it's an interesting setup that I actually do recommend. As far as it's just amazing usages, it may not be the best setup for this gun, and it may not work when playing just like competitive play, but actually in pub lobbies it does pretty good, even when playing against pretty skilled players. I find myself doing pretty good with this setup. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider rating it. It really does help me out a lot. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Bye.